Thanks for coming to our monthly program for June, uh, virtual edition. The Sierra Club is America's oldest and largest environmental group, and we'd like you to join if you're not already a member, and you can join at sierraclub.org. When you join the national group, you've automatically joined the local group by your address. Our motto is to explore, enjoy, and protect the planet. My name is Dan Ezekiel, and I'm the chair of the executive committee of the Huron Valley Group. Let's please start with a moment of silence for those who are ill, have lost someone, or who live in fear of violence in their community, including police violence. Thank you for that. I want to tell you that your leadership is working hard to come to terms with what our role is as far as the unearned privileges some of us hold as white people, as males, as straight people, as able people, and so on, and the cost our privilege causes others. We're thinking about the struggles that were brought into the open by the murders of George Floyd and others, the 400-year-plus struggle of our brothers and sisters who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Rather than mouth empty words, I want to tell you that we are in a listening and learning mode. We had already been working on these issues before this season, for example, by diversifying our leadership and building bridges with the Black community within our service area. But these issues are coming into a clearer focus for us now, and you can expect to be hearing more about what role the Sierra Club's Huron Valley Group can play in these struggles moving forward. One initiative I can share with you now is that in line with the discussions that we've been having with opinion leaders in Eastern Washtenaw County as part of our outreach to the Black and Brown community in our area, our November meeting will again have an Ypsilanti focus as we had last year. Whether the meeting is held in person in Ypsi or virtually is not something we can say yet. I hope we'll get a large attendance for that meeting either way as we learn about issues of special interest to the Ypsi community and hopefully celebrate the results of the November election. I want to thank Jamie McGuire for figuring out how to do these live streams on Blue Jeans. And Jamie has also finished up the next newsletter, which you'll be seeing soon in print, if you receive it in print. And I believe this is the case. Jamie, are you going to put the link up so that people can see it electronically now?
Yeah, I'll put the link in the chat. People will be able to click on it to download the video, the PDF.
Yeah, it's just an outstanding job. You got a fan letter today from Richard Barron after he saw it. He thought it looked good as well.
And that's a tough critic.
Yeah. So also executive committee members Anya Dale, myself, and especially Vice Chair Amanda Sweetman have been working on an entertaining video about tonight's topic called Trash Talk. It features questions and answers about recycling in general and questions about how to properly prepare your recyclables. And the questions are asked by some adorable local kids and answered by experts, including one of tonight's presenters. We'll show a 2-minute snippet from the video at the end of tonight's meeting if you want to stay tuned. And I mentioned that the kids are adorable without any prejudice due to the fact that 2 of them are my own grandchildren. So this is the part of the meeting, if we were meeting in person, where I would usually ask you to get up and introduce yourself to someone you don't know. I'm wondering if a couple of people would be willing to unmute yourselves and just chime in and introduce yourself and tell us why you came in tonight, especially if you're not part of the inner circle that always comes to these meetings. So go for it.
I'll jump
What make
in.
you,
Is that okay? Just jump in? All right.
please?
I'm just fabulously interested in recycling and in climate change and all the social issues that we're confronting. I'm still trying to figure out how I can fit in and how I can help. So when I got wind of your email, Dan, I just really appreciated getting it and being able to just listen in here tonight and learn something. By trade, I'm a retired engineer with a dangerous knowledge of the climate technology, and I'd just like to do more somehow. Thanks.
Thank you. How about somebody else? Just jump in.
My name's Ashley. I've gone on a couple of hikes with your meetup group. I work for a federal agent. I work for the Army Corps of Engineers, and I'm a project manager. And I've been also helping manage in, environmental cleanup projects with the U.S. EPA. And I also sit on Plymouth Township's Environmental Stewardship Board. So we talk a lot about Ann Arbor and how Ann Arbor is a model for how we want to move forward. That I really wanted to hear what you guys had to say about recycling, because we are putting together an action plan the next couple of weeks, and I'm just here to learn.
Wow, thanks so much, Ashley. We're so glad you're here. Anybody else want to share?
I'll jump in. I'm Dave Corsa, retired elementary teacher from Ann Arbor. I'm also on the board of Project Grow, so I'm very interested in gardening and food production, and also a master composter for the Washtenaw County.
And that doesn't even begin to tell the story, because Dave had a massive worm composting program going at Eberwhite for a long time, and I believe the STEAM school copied his program.
Yeah, unfortunately, some of the others haven't done so well, but I'm very dedicated to keep those worms alive at Eberwhite.
We're glad you're with us tonight. All right. I'm going to go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Cartman.
Hi, Suzanne.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm just an avid recycler, and recently I've been a little confused about what's recyclable and what's not, and what's reusable and what's not. And I'm just anxious to hear what you have to say about what's going on.
Suzanne, you are not alone. When I walk up and down my block on recycling day and see the things that people do and don't have in their curb carts, that was kind of the genesis of the idea for this meeting.
Oh, okay.
Let me make a few more announcements and then we'll get to our presenters. So we recently learned from the National Sierra Club that the ban on in-person activities is now extended till at least August 31st. And I wish we didn't have to do our meetings this way, but this is how it is, and we're gonna make the most of this situation. And we have great speakers and a worthy topic tonight. Our physical outings are also currently shut down by edict of the National Sierra Club and also by common sense. But it doesn't stop you from going outside to enjoy the early summer in nature. And we're also having these virtual hikes called exercise guides advertised on our meetup page. And thanks to John Metzler, our outing co-chair, for taking the lead in organizing that. We look forward to getting back to the real thing before too long. Next month's presentation is going to be about the election. Our friends Christy McGillivray and Tim Minotis from the State Sierra Club chapter will be outlining the club's priorities for the election and how we can all help. And the meeting date is Tuesday, July 16th, same time, same place. Speaking of the election, I'm pleased to announce that the Huron Valley Group has endorsed Democratic County Commissioner Felicia Braybeck for the primary in one of our local state representative seats, and the primary is on August 4th. The leadership team also recently had a presentation with two state Sierra Club political interns who are working on United States Senator Gary Peters' reelection campaign as well as Gretchen Driscoll's campaign to unseat U.S. Representative Tim Walberg. And those are both Sierra Club endorsements. We'll be getting you info about how to help with those campaigns. Also, we have this long-running project to write letters to low propensity voters. And I just wanted to do some show and tell. So here's some of them. And here's some more. Can you see these? Here's some more and some more. And I don't have all of them. Janet Kahn told me she has about 100 of them, and there's some other ones that are out too. And these will be mailed in October to try to persuade these folks to vote with our handwritten messages. Also, the National Sierra Club has a letter writing party every Wednesday evening from 5 till 7, and you can find details on sierraclub.org. I haven't done the national call-in or the national letter writing party. Has anybody done that already? You unmute yourself, Richard. Richard, unmute.
Yeah, I've done some calling, but I've not done the letter writing, mainly because I'm too cheap to buy that many stamps.
Oh. You write them and we'll pay for your stamps, okay? I'm hoping to participate in that soon. By next month, I'll have a report about that. I want to say the Huron Valley Group has identified the election as our top priority for 2020. And the leadership team decided not to make endorsements in local elections below the level of state representative. We don't want to put any of our bandwidth into local wrangles where our own membership may be divided. We believe all environmentalists can agree on the need of removing the current president, as well as electing an environmentalist majority to the Michigan House of Representatives, and that's where we want to put all our effort. Individual members of leadership are, of course, free to endorse locally, and we have done so, but no candidate for an office below state representative should be claiming current endorsement by the Sierra Club Huron Valley Group. We can't stop them from saying they were previously endorsed in other elections, if that's the case, but we would like to hear about it if you hear a local candidate claiming to have our current endorsement so that we can ask them to stop saying that. Here's a victory, a big victory. Our group has been one of the sponsors of the A20 initiative, which is the plan to bring Ann Arbor's carbon footprint down to zero by 2030, led by the city's Office of Sustainability and its director, Missy Stoltz. This month, City Council approved the plan unanimously. We want to thank all those who called and wrote their council members to ask them for this vote. And we especially want to commend Mayor Chris Taylor and Councilmember Kathy Griswold, who worked hard to forge compromise language on a controversial land use section of the plan in order to secure the unanimous vote. We've written each council member and the mayor individually to thank them. Now the hard work, which is finding the funding and implementing the plan, begins. You can learn more about the plan at a20.org and expect to hear much more about this from us. Lastly, if you are interested in running for the executive committee, which is the leadership of the Huron Valley Group, you need to get nominated by this time next month, and the election is in December. There are 4 seats up and at least 2 current members not planning to run for re-election, so we definitely need some good candidates to step up. If you have somebody to suggest, please let me know. Of course, we would like to have as diverse of an executive committee as possible. And if you want more details, see the newsletter that's going to be coming in your mailbox soon, or else email me or email Richard Barron right there, who's the chair of the nominations committee. So now, without any further ado, I would like to present our speakers for tonight. Bryan Weinert, who long worked for the city in solid waste and recycling. He's retired from that. He's the director of strategy for Recycle Ann Arbor. And Sam McMullen, who's the co-founder of Live Zero Waste, and who is meeting with us now from his current home in Brooklyn. Take it away, Bryan and Sam.
Okay. All right, well, good evening to everyone. In addition to being on the REA staff and a former City of Ann Arbor employee, I also serve on the board of Recycle Ann Arbor. I'm also on the board of the Interfaith Roundtable of Washtenaw County and an organization known as A Brighter Way, which is a prisoner reentry program here in Washtenaw County. I have 3 grown daughters and 4 wonderful grandchildren. I'm pleased to say all of whom live in the area, which is a great joy for me. I want to talk really practically tonight on kind of what's in and what's out of the curbside carts in Ann Arbor, what's accepted at the regional drop-off station on Ellsworth Road, and a bit about the future of recycling in Washtenaw County. But let me start, though, with a fundamental acknowledgement of what drives my work, and I think the work of Recycle Ann Arbor in the community. Recycle Ann Arbor is a 42-year-old mission-driven nonprofit that's affiliated with the Ecology Center, which was founded 50 years ago this year as an outgrowth of the first teach-in on the environment in 1970. For me, recycling is an awareness of the need to address materialism in our culture and the devastating effects that our often lazy, wasteful, and excessive need for stuff produces. For example, the United States makes up about 5% of the world's population, but we consume between 17 and 24% of the world's energy each year. If you're an average American, you generate about a ton of solid waste every year. About 35% of that total is now being recycled or composted, but that leaves 65% that's still being landfilled or incinerated in the United States. You all know that we have a problem, which is why you're engaged with the Sierra Club. It seems to me that in addition to general education and personal and group advocacy, we also need some honest soul searching and a personal inventory of our choices about stuff and a commitment to change. As environmentalists, I think we are blessed with a burden to know, to care, and to be the change. Like so many issues facing our society today, I think we need to reaffirm the values of self-sacrifice, humility, simplicity, and a need to consider the impacts of our choices on those most marginalized in our society. I think such reflection also helps us to appreciate the need for the support of one another in that journey, to learn, grow, and adapt, to truly support the ideals that we claim to embrace. One final comment. In the end, it's not just the stuff we buy, but where we buy it and from whom. Let's also affirm our responsibility to hold producers to account for their behavior and to buy from small local businesses and nonprofits whenever possible. So, thanks for letting me get that off my chest. On to the main event, recycling. Understand that recycling is the remanufacture of something that has already been used to place that feedstock back into the production process. I want to take a minute to discuss the role of recycling in what is now called the critical manufacturing sector in the United States from an article titled "Recycling is Essential Work," which was recently published by the Ecology Center. Just one paragraph. Without recycled materials, many manufacturers of essential products would see their supply chains radically disrupted, causing immediate shortages followed by higher prices in the wake of a pivot to virgin material. The Institute for Scrap Recycling Industries reports that 70% of steel and stainless steel produced in the United States is made from recycled scrap. And so is 50% of aluminum. More than 75% of U.S. paper mills use some degree of recycled paper, and some of those depend on recycled paper for 100% of their feedstock. And the toilet paper and tissues everyone has been scrambling for since March, 58% of that feedstock that's used to produce tissue and toilet paper comes from recycled fiber. And manufacturers are scrambling for as much as they can get. That was kind of news to me. I knew that we were an integral part of the manufacturing cycle, but I didn't know to what extent and how critical recycling actually is beyond the environmental benefits to the production process and the manufacturing process here in the United States. So in that sense, and in the sense of the environmental benefits of recycling, we actually have a bit of a success story in the United States. Even though we're only at 35% recovery overall, when I first started in the business in 1984, I think the number was about 5 to 10%. So we have made a quantum leap as a society to recover more material. The problem is, during that time, the amount of waste generated per capita has continued to grow as well. So while we can celebrate the impact and the investment in infrastructure and recycling in the United States, we also have to lament the growth in stuff during that time as well. Understand that reduce, reuse, repair are higher ideals than recycling and composting, which are better than landfilling and incineration. Recycling still causes pollution. Recycling alone is not the best solution, but it is a good one. Sam will talk more, I think, about that other side, the aspirational side, to move beyond just recycling and composting. So I'm going to start now and just kind of do a quick inventory of the products that are included in the curbside collection mix, say a few words about them. That includes in Ann Arbor single-family, multifamily, and the commercial sector. One of the challenges we face in Washtenaw County is that not every community has the same standard of what's in and what's out because we have multiple haulers, multiple processing facilities. The University of Michigan, for example, largely mimics what the city of Ann Arbor does, but not entirely so. So if you work at the University of Michigan, you may have slightly different standards for recyclability than the city of Ann Arbor. And you're floating freely between each one and trying to figure out, what am I supposed to be doing? So I do appreciate the challenge that we face. So let me walk through curbside first. I'll take a few minutes to talk about drop-off station as a backup or as a supplement to curbside, and then open it up to questions that you might have. So here we go. Here's the list. I'll just start moving along, and if you have particular questions or observations about a given product, just make a note to yourself, and then when I get through, we'll give you a chance to ask follow-up questions, especially, I think, in this format. So obviously newspapers, magazines. So this is all what's acceptable in the curbside mix right now. Magazines and catalogs, old commercial cardboard, OCC as it's called in the industry, junk mail. So anything that you get in the mail, box board, cereal box, tissue box kind of material. Frozen food boxes are okay. Office grades of paper are okay. Paperback books are okay. Glass, and here the distinction is container glass, so not Pyrex and other kind of ceramic. This is strictly the glass bottles and jars that we get. Tin cans, scrap metal, up to 20 pounds. This is in curbside now. Number 1 and number 2 plastics. We'll come back to plastics. But what we're really seeking in the curbside programs are bottles and tubs, numbers 1 and 2. And we'll talk about the other numbers and the kind of complexity of plastics when we come back in a minute. Aseptics. So milk cartons and juice boxes are acceptable. I think that's a pretty good list of kind of what's in the mix. So maybe let me just take 1 minute and open it up for questions that people might have about those commodities, and then I'll go into those materials that are accepted for recycling at the drop-off, but that are not included in the curbside collection program.
How about plastic bags from like the produce section of grocery store?
Yep, they are recyclable. They are accepted at the drop-off station, and multiple retail stores that sell or that give you a plastic bag also have containers, usually at the front of the store, for plastics recycling. I can't vouch for how well they do in actually seeing that those materials get recycled. I do know that the plastic film or bags that are dropped off at the drop-off station are sent to Trex in North Carolina to be made into decking and wood composite type material. We get a fairly decent price for it, and the quality has been very good that we've received. So that is the material. Again, we're often put in a difficult position as a nonprofit environmental organization. On the one hand, we want to acknowledge the reality of these products in the stream, but on the other hand, we don't want to encourage people to continue using these products. And so plastic
Bryan,
film.
Bryan, you're burying the lead. Richard asked you if you can throw plastic bags in a recycling cart.
You cannot in the cart. You cannot put it in the cart. Thank you.
And say why.
Oh, yeah. The primary reason is that all of the materials from the curbside collection go to a material recovery facility, which is largely an automated facility that separates out the various grades of paper and containers. And given the nature of that machinery, the plastic film basically gets spun into rollers and other kind of moving equipment and ends up clogging the machines. And there are MRFs that actually have to shut down a couple of times a day to just cut the bags off of those pieces of machinery because it shuts down the entire line. So they are recyclable, but they cause such a problem in recovery facilities. That's the reason that they're collected and baled and sold separately, and they go directly to factories that are using it as a feedstock to make new products. They're not in that mix of single stream or commingled recyclables. Yeah.
Can I put basically any thin film in? So I get a newspaper in the morning, it's in a little blue bag. Can I put that in as part of it? Okay.
You
And
can.
there's a lot of packaging I get from, and I hate to say it, if my back's to the wall, I'll get something from Amazon, and the box has got a bunch of little bubbles in it that I can slit it with a knife, and that to me is a thin film. So can all that kind of thing go in there and be included in that plastic recycling?
Yes,
Okay.
it can.
Thank you.
It can.
Great.
And I would go to Recycle Ann Arbor's website if you want to get more information, dig deeper into the kinds of materials that are considered plastic film. A good example of something that's not, that you might think would be the frozen food bags, like that frozen peas come in or something. Those would not be considered film, and those should not go into the either the curbside bin or set aside for plastic film recycling. But we do face the challenge of, do we acknowledge the reality of these products in the system and do our best to see that they get removed? Or do we take a righteous stand and say we're not going to accept a material, encouraging people to not use that material, but then forego any ability to get any value out of those materials? So we've chosen, in the case of plastic film, styrofoam's another good example, that we do accept those materials at the drop-off station, and we bale it and send it as a source-separated material to various markets. But in doing so, we don't want to give the wrong impression that, again, back to my earlier point about our consumption-based economy, to really think about the choices we make. Part of what complicates it also is that we often don't choose it. You just get it. If you don't catch that bagger in time, you got yourself 3 plastic bags. If you order something from Amazon, you get those bubble packs, or you get styrofoam, whether you want it or not. And so we're trying to provide an outlet for people that, okay, I've got it. Now what can I do with it to be the most responsible?
Are people who are not citizens of Ann Arbor able to use the drop box
Yes.
or the drop center?
Yep. It's a regional drop off, which is primarily, I think it's about 97% or so Washtenaw County residents and businesses. So there is a few percent of people even outside of Washtenaw County that use it. And there's no citizenship requirements to use the drop off facility. So that's kind of nice.
And is there a place where you can find out where that facility is located?
Yeah, so just go to recycleannarbor.org and you'll see drop-off station, and it'll give you the address, the hours, and has a pretty good list of all the materials that are included and some materials that aren't included in the mix of what we accept.
Thank you.
Yeah. I can't see everybody's screen, so if you want to ask a question, just please feel free to jump in. So if not, let me just quickly walk through some of the materials that are accepted at the drop-off station that are not included in the curbside collection program. We've talked about some already. Styrofoam, film plastics, hard plastics. So you've got that old swimming pool that your grandkids use or that your kids use you want to get rid of. You can take it to the drop-off station for recycling, but not in the curbside cart. White goods and appliances are accepted. Some of these items do have fees associated with them. So again, check the website or be prepared to pay based on the nature of the commodity and what it costs us to actually recycle it or dispose of it properly. But white goods and appliances are included in the mix at the drop-off. Construction debris, compost and wood waste. Hardcover books can be brought in separately, and we have a separate market for hardcover books. Textiles, clothing, electronics, light bulbs, fluorescent, and other bulbs, but not incandescent bulbs. Those can just get thrown away. But otherwise, bulbs and tubes can be brought in. We do take rechargeable batteries and automotive batteries, but not household alkaline batteries. We accept motor oil and vegetable oil also for recycling at the drop-off station. And then finally, I'll just add, and then see if you have any questions, and then turn it over to Sam, is that Washtenaw County has a household hazardous waste drop-off center that receives home toxics, so it has to be generated within a household, not within a business. They do take home toxics, and it's in a pretty comprehensive range of materials that would be considered toxic. You can actually make an appointment to bring material in on a specific date and time. And they also, during the, I think about 8 or 9 months of the year, they do have select Saturday mornings that the drop-off stations open on Zeeb Road, Washtenaw County building on Zeeb Road, that you can bring in materials without an appointment, and then you just kind of have to wait in line. It is all donation-based, so the county is basically covering the cost to encourage appropriate behavior, but if people are willing to donate something to help offset the cost of properly disposing of these materials. I do know that they do reclaim paint, and there may be a few other what we would consider to be toxic products that they're able to actually recycle. Most of it ends up going into a hazardous waste landfill or incinerator, but at least it's not going into a standard landfill that doesn't have as stringent a requirement as hazardous waste facilities do. So it's still, again, it's not perfect by any means, but it's more responsible than just throwing it in your trash cart or throwing it in the dumpster behind the mall.
Hey, Brian, this is Evan here. Do you want me to chime in for just 30
Oh,
seconds?
please do, Evan.
That? Yeah,
Yes.
So Washtenaw County does take-backs the first 3 Saturdays of each month from April through November. We were shut down for COVID. We took some stuff 2 weeks ago, but this Saturday will kind of be the first on the regular schedule, and we'll accept alkaline batteries as well as many of the things that Bryan mentioned, other types of batteries, fluorescent tubes, automotive fluids are pretty common to see come in. A lot of people don't realize that if latex paint is fairly fresh, 5 years or less, and hasn't been frozen, that can get reused, blended, and it goes to Recommunity or Habitat for Humanity, and that's sold really cheap. And then oil paint of any stripes can come in. Older paint, you just dry out, and that actually does go in the dumpster, and people use kitty litter. So Washtenaw County, though, has a website, too, that's got information on what you can and can't drop in there. I don't want to suck up all of your oxygen that you guys are trying to use here. But just to chime in, this Saturday was the main thing. 705 Zeeb Road, just off the freeway.
It is an absolutely wonderful service that's provided by the county that I don't think many other counties provide, and so take advantage of it. It's a wonderful program. One final comment. We have a motto, when in doubt, leave it out. Particularly when thinking about your curbside collection program. I think as environmentalists, sometimes we think, I'm not sure, what the heck? Maybe somebody can use this. I'll throw this in. Maybe it can be recovered. More often than not, it ends up causing problems further down the line, and sometimes fairly major problems when it gets thrown in. So even though our sensibilities, especially as environmentalists, is to say, I'm not sure, I'll throw it in the hopes that this could be useful, it's not. So please stand by the motto, when in doubt, leave it out. And just keep your eyes open on the choices that you're making. We can do so much to control the waste streams that we create. All right, with that, turn it back over to Dan and Sam.
Well, I just had one comment. When they first started doing single stream recycling, we put all our stuff in the same container before we took it out to the bin. But it turned out to be really easy just to have two containers, two bins in the house, one for containers and one for paper. And that way the paper doesn't get messed up by any liquid or anything that might still be in the container from having been rinsed out.
Yeah,
so
that is one advantage. That's one advantage of the drop-off station is we do still provide. Right now we're just doing single stream while we're in the transition with COVID. But in general, it does provide the option to kind of separate out your materials, so we have a pure supply. And I expect that will continue once we're back up in more normal operations. So that's another advantage of using the drop-off station. And you're right, you do lose some quality and some recovery through the single stream system. For whatever reason, the industry probably now 15 years ago, 20 years ago, made the decision to invest in single stream recovery facilities, and that is the way that virtually every processing facility has now gone. The trade-off is you get higher participation from people. The downside is quality suffers as a result, and you also get people doing this wishful recycling because you've got a big cart. Why not fill it up? Maybe somebody can use this old hose. And so you run into those kinds of issues. So there's always trade-offs. We've kind of got the system that we've got, and we've just got to do the best we can, that hopefully we minimize the outthrows that are coming in. If the quality overall was within the guidelines of the product mix that we have, it does allow for about 95% of the product to be recovered. So that is a hopeful thing to say, even given the limitations of single stream. Good question.
Were you going to say a little more about some of the plastics that you won't take?
Oh, yeah. It starts getting really complicated because the resin code that we're all pretty familiar with on plastic containers is not a definitive way to define the recyclability of a given product. You have the distinction of blow molded versus injection molded. I don't know the chemistry well enough to know. Steve Brown's here. He could probably talk to you for a while about how the chemical composition changes based on the production processes that are used. We do know that number one and twos that are either bottles or containers like yogurt containers or cottage cheese containers, all of that material gets recycled. When you start moving into other kinds of plastic, it's much tougher to know whether and how much of that plastic ends up getting recovered. And the fact of the matter is a fair amount of that other plastic ends up accidentally commingled with the good plastics, the recoverable plastics, which makes the ability to market those effectively and get the highest and best end use, makes it tougher because you've got these other grades of plastics that are then mixed with it. And so the message right now is really one and two. We're doing the best we can. We're sending material right now to Rumpke in Cincinnati for processing. They do a pretty good job of separating. They do have some auxiliary markets for some of these other plastics, but it's hit and miss. And we want to be honest with people that if you really want maximum recyclability of plastics, focus on the number ones and number twos. And then, of course, we take styrofoam as part of the drop-off, and foam plastic, hard plastics at the drop-off center. So it's a tough call. But that's the reality.
I'd like to chime something in here for a minute. It does get complicated, as you can tell by listening to this. The city has a really nice set of flyers. One is called Recycle with Confidence and one is called Compost with Confidence. And I think Jamie just put them in the chat. And at our house, we printed them out and we put them on our fridge. And they have just helped so much. And I actually laminated them and I show them to my neighbors because they don't believe me. And those are just a really good starting point that will pretty much make you at least 99% appropriate with your recycling is just from those two flyers. And they're in the chat, right, Jamie?
Yes, they are.
Cool. And then the other thing I'd like to say, and Bryan kind of mentioned this, and it also segues to talking about the election, like we were talking before. Washtenaw County's government had imposed a 10-cent tax on plastic bags at the grocery store, one-use plastic bags, like those things that you get at the produce, for example. And the state legislature, in their wisdom, preempted that and banned Washtenaw County or any county from charging or banning those kind of containers. That brings us back to why we should be working hard on this election. So we put our recyclers in the position of trying to decide what to do with these one-use plastic bags instead of moving beyond them.
Yeah.
So
quick comment. I was in New Haven, Connecticut recently, and they now charge every vendor is forced to charge 10 cents per plastic bag. And I talked to a couple of them that said, well, the plastic bag use has gone down like 60%. So it's an extremely effective mechanism if we could pull it off.
Yeah.
And single-use plastic bags have been banned in many states and municipalities, Hawaii, I know, California, and so on. So it is doable, but not with our current state legislature. They announced a contest, the state legislature, almost at the same time that they preempted the bag tax, announced a contest for a new state flag. And I was thinking of submitting a Great Lake with a plastic bag floating in it. So maybe we should switch over and give Sam a chance to take us to the next level.
Yep.
I think we're having some technical issues here. Let's have
Yeah,
a
I'm
round
not
of
able to hear him.
let's have a round of applause for Bryan Weinert while we figure this out.
All right, here.
All right, how is this?
Yeah,
There you
go.
Is that better?
That's better.
Perfect.
Amazing. All right. Pardon any extraneous sounds then, because I'm out of my earphones. So my name is Samuel McMullen. I'm going to talk a little bit about zero waste. I was just saying that I grew up in Ann Arbor making igloos out of the old recycling tubs that we used to have. That was a sad thing to lose, but I'm sure the toters are much, much better. So like I said, I grew up in Ann Arbor. I founded a little nonprofit, zero waste nonprofit with my sister back in 2016. And she and I have been living the zero waste lifestyle since middle of 2015. And so we've got an opportunity to learn a lot about what barriers are in the way for people to live this lifestyle and how to help people get over them. Right now I'm in New York City helping a restaurant transition to zero waste, a restaurant group called the Grey Dog. So if any of you find yourselves in the city, please stop by and see how we're doing. Okay, so there are three things I want to touch on, and I'll try to move at a little bit of a clip to give some time for questions at the end. I want to talk about what zero waste is in response to, or contextualize it a little bit, what it looks like in practice, so sort of what our lifestyle is, and then what you might try to do in the next couple days. So start off with what zero waste is in response to. I think it's Bryan gave a really good introduction to the problem. We all sort of have this intuitive feeling that we're using too much. There's our lifestyles over the past few decades have really ramped up in terms of how much we're asking of the natural world, how much we're requiring of the resources that exist in the world, especially as Americans. So one thing that bears mentioning, in the time of this uprising, is that the people who bear the brunt of that excessive consumption are often in Black and brown communities in the U.S., but also elsewhere in the world. A lot of our the true impact of our waste is exported by production being in other countries. So we sort of export the negative externalities of production as well as the actual physical manufacture of those goods. So we're in this global crisis, and zero waste is sort of a radical assuming of responsibility. And I feel like the argument often against it is, well, we don't actually have that much power. It's businesses, or it's these bigger entities with much larger levers to enact change that need to be doing the work. And my response is always yes, absolutely. 100% governments, NGOs, businesses need to be taking a huge look at their practices and their sourcing. And I'm getting a little bit of a peek into what that looks like with this restaurant group. It's a tough nut to crack, because it's so easy to just go on price. Price is such a nice shorthand for decision making, and incorporating impact, incorporating the life cycle of the product into that decision making is a big ask and requires a lot more attention. But the other side of it is that as an individual, while you may not have a huge lever, by taking the responsibility for your lifestyle, you start to gain a really in-depth, textural understanding of the problem. You start to understand where it is that your habits are interacting with the waste stream, what resources you're actually asking for. And I think that's a really important first step, because all of these larger organizations that we're asking so much of and that we wish were doing better are made up of humans that don't really understand their own place in the system. So as much as we can do to do that first step of taking kind of radical responsibility, of your own habits, the better. And it's an extraordinarily satisfying step to take. And unlike other environmental actions where it can feel a little bit preachy, zero waste is weird enough and off the wall enough that people don't usually come with judgment to it. They usually come with questions, which is a phenomenal difference in terms of how the conversation goes down about environmentalism. Environmentalism, I find the conversation so often starts with defensiveness and oh no, well actually you can't solve that problem this way, or you're actually a hypocrite for these reasons or whatever. I've experienced very little of that talking about a zero waste lifestyle, because people immediately they go, okay, what about toilet paper? That's a probing question. That's not a defensive question. And all the questions that come after that, if you answer it earnestly and you say, listen, this is a crazy lifestyle and it's a lot of fun and here's why I do it. It invites people into a conversation about environmentalism in a completely different way, which I'm very excited to discover. So that's sort of where I see zero waste in terms of the like what it's in response to. And then speaking a little bit about activism and environmental justice, the zero waste really does hit at one of the basic levels. It's obviously not a panacea. There are so many other environmental issues, but it is a serious environmental justice issue, as I was talking about before, with the where the problem exerts its negative impacts. So seeing ourselves as doing environmental justice work, even when it's, if you're Bryan doing recycling or Dan running a environmental group, like making sure that we're always seeing it as environmental justice work and finding the ways that intersects with housing inequality, all these other issues that are at play, I think can only stand to benefit the overall trajectory of environmentalism. Just a little side note there. So what does zero waste look like in practice? It's sometimes goofy. It's very conversational. It's really good for very good lifestyle for social people. It often starts with a conversation. So you'll, for instance, at a restaurant, this is obviously pre-COVID. I'm not even going to touch on how COVID has changed zero waste. That's a whole can of worms, and hopefully we'll get back to some semblance of where we were at before in terms of bulk stores, in terms of being okay without using disposables sometime soon. But what it did look like was a conversation with maybe a waiter saying, hey, I see that your silverware is wrapped in a napkin. Is there any chance you have some loose silverware in the back? I'm trying to do this zero waste challenge. Or I don't have a trash can at home. Or I'm competing with my sister to see who can make the lowest amount of trash. So it'll start there, and it often involves bringing your own container. So deli counters will often fill something up for you if you bring it, or they used to. It involves rethinking a lot of the standard procedures that we have in our lives. So, for instance, buying toothpaste. Toothpaste itself is not horrible usually if you're getting the more natural kind of stuff, but the packaging is obviously, if you can avoid it, you would want to avoid it, right? And the main thrust of our brand of zero waste is nothing new. So of targeting the purchasing decision, finding ways that you can avoid sending that economic signal to make another package of toothpaste, or make another pair of shoes or whatever. So thrift stores totally on. The Recycle Center is a great resource. Facebook groups, free cycle Facebook groups, making it yourself. So toothpaste, a little bit of peppermint oil, baking soda, water, done. My dentist has not complained. Our water is fluoridated, so if you're worried about fluoride, that's a nice way to get it. So yeah, targeting this purchasing decision, as you start to think through it, I find that usually the questions section is where we get the most traction on this. So I'll sort of leave this a little vague, but anything new that you are purchasing, I think we all understand, sends that signal into the world. Please make another one of these things. Please use the resources it takes to manufacture this, the man hours, the water. So whatever you can do to avoid that. And then at the other end of the cycle is collecting. So I have in my I should have brought it out, in my closet, just a few steps from here, a bag of all my trash since trash and recycling since 2015, and it's two big Trader Joe's bags crammed in an IKEA bag. A lot of that is junk mail. A lot of that is accidents. It's cups at bars, or napkins or toothpicks and sandwiches. It's a lot of little incidental things that have built up over the years. But the point is, if you're trying to live a zero waste lifestyle, you have then a record of your mistakes, and a record of, and a really good incentive not to make that mistake again. So that's what we do with our trash. Hopefully we'll make some sort of art with it. And it's not doing much right now. Okay, so that's the lifestyle, and I always like to sort of end on a call to action. I think a lot of people see zero waste and are like, oh, cool, that's really nice that you do that. That's exciting for you. And I want to do as best I can to invite you into this lifestyle, even if it's just for a day, because I just have to advocate for this thing that we call trash goggles. Once you decide to keep your trash, even just for a day, you look at the world differently. You're like, oh my God, okay, no, I can't take that. I can't do this. I can't buy that. Oh, I'm brushing my teeth with this. The way it really radically shifts your outlook. So I really encourage you to commit to yourself, whether it's for the next day, tomorrow morning, through tomorrow evening to collect your trash, or even better, for the next week. I find that after a week, you get a really good sense of where your trash is coming from and where you have the most opportunity to make a difference. For most people, it's going to be food packaging, eating out, that kind of stuff. And my only advice there is to go for staples. I love milk and cheese, but I've eaten very little of it because it's so hard to find milk without the little plastic ring around the edge. And even if the glass is recycled. So this is sort of a personal version of what Bryan might call source reduction, which is trying to stop the waste before it even gets started. So that's a common term in business waste and waste management is source reduction. So this is sort of personal source reduction, and the first step on that is to do a little bit of an audit. So I encourage you all to do your zero waste day or zero waste week, or if you're feeling really gutsy, a zero waste month. If you go to livezerowaste.org, there's a little pledge button, and we'll help you out with a few resources. We'll send you some emails if that's of interest to you. But with all that said, I'll open it up for questions. I'm excited to hear any probes that you might have into the lifestyle. Let me just first, before the first question comes out, the exceptions to the zero waste lifestyle are toilet paper. Get it as recycled and as paper wrapped as you can, or find a bidet. Medical waste, so any medications that you're on, obviously no need to sacrifice your well-being for zero waste, but also know that medications have a pretty significant impact on the wastewater system. So many of the pharmaceuticals that you ingest end up in the water system. Medical waste, toilet paper, and anything that is essential to your job function. So if you're a lab technician and you use plastic or latex gloves every day, those don't count towards your personal waste, because in theory, if you're not doing that job, someone is, and we don't want you to sacrifice your safety for zero waste. It's although we have had many people do really good activism in their offices, starting office compost programs, double-sided printing, all that kind of stuff. But it need not factor into your personal waste audit. That can be sort of an add-on later. Okay, open for questions.
Sam, this is Erica Ackerman. It's great to see you.
Yeah, what a pleasure.
Prospering in this way. Hi. I just wondered if you could say more, give more ideas for tips, like the toothpaste. Just kind of describe, like, as you go through the day, a normal day, what do you do that's different?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, toothpaste, I explained. There are some very simple things that go a long way. I hate to reduce it to simple tips, because where you start to make the biggest impact is by making it biting off more than you can chew, and then figuring it out from there. But bringing your own bag, always having a cup at the ready, shopping around the outside of the grocery store. That's a really impactful tip. Anytime you get into aisles, you start getting packaging. So if you can find, I don't know how everyone likes to cook, but it is kind of a fun challenge to go to the produce section and find the things without rubber bands, without twist ties, and be like, oh, okay, so parsnip soup tonight. There will often be a good selection of things that truly have no waste, that you can find some creative dishes to make with. Let's see, there are, writing on the backs of scrap paper that you find at the office. Clipboards are a great notebook conversion. I really love the pencil paper feeling. So that was something that I was reluctant to give up, and I've found that clipboards with scrap paper work perfectly well. And then we get into sort of like shower routines. There are some stores, like Lush, for instance, sells a great shampoo bar that if you ask them, you can carry out with no packaging. Whole Foods sometimes will have bars of soap with no sticker on them. But it is very interesting to be really rigorous at first, especially. So if you are going to try it for a week, no stickers on fruit. Be really just totally cutthroat about it and see how far you get. See what's up. Because I've found that it's actually more psychological strain to start making exceptions than to be, nope, can't do it, sticker, no. It makes for a simpler ask, even though it's a bigger ask. Did that touch on some things, Eric? Are there specific areas of life that you'd like to address? Our blog has a good sort of, the Live Zero Waste blog, livezerowaste.org, has a good sort of survey of places that our lives differ a little bit.
That's a good rundown on things. Thanks.
Yeah. Great to see your face.
Yeah.
Sam, what was the name of you said a restaurant that you're working with now to get them to be zero waste? What was the name of that restaurant again?
Yeah, it's called the Gray Dog. It's sort of a group of 6 restaurants in Lower Manhattan that I started working for a few years ago, or about 2 years ago. And they were in the process of becoming a B Corp, and my affinity for sustainability sort of lined up with that. And so I'm helping them run that transition. Sorry, this is something I didn't anticipate about sitting outside, is that the sun is going down.
Sam, can you touch on your personal odyssey? How did you get here? What led you to make this lifestyle change?
Absolutely, yeah. It was. I don't usually talk about it because it's such a boring story. My sister and I were doing air pollution research for the Carbon and Climate Law Review in Beijing, and we were meant to do a presentation on that on China's air pollution policy, which surprisingly is pretty good. They've done some good work. And her boss gave an excellent presentation the day before we were supposed to, and so we called an audible and did the presentation on zero waste, and did a little bit of a challenge at the end. And we said, we want you to try it for a day, a week, a month, or a year. And it only felt fair for us to do the highest level of the challenge. So we said, okay, we're going to do it for a year starting after this presentation. And it's been off to the races since then. China was a really crazy place to do it. There are you'll often find sets of plates at a restaurant shrink wrapped in plastic, just as a sort of we're clean measure. So that was a fun place to start out. And then coming to the United States, it felt a little bit easier in some ways.
Sam, I'm in awe of your 2 bags of waste after however long, a couple of years or 5 years?
Since 2015, I guess it is almost 5 years. Oh my God.
That's really amazing. I did want to share a little personal tip. You mentioned soap. I love Dr. Bronner's soap, and I've been using it forever. And at the People's Food Co-op, they have it in bulk, and so I've just been using the same 2 Dr. Bronner's bottles for decades now, and just taking them back to the People's Food Co-op and fill them back up.
Yeah. The one thing that comes to mind is junk mail. I'm sure that's a huge thing for everyone here. There is, again, it's on the Live Zero Waste website, but there's a place where you can put in your social security number, and that opts you out of the credit mail. And it seems a little bit scary, but it's legit. It's the real deal. I haven't gotten credit offers since I did that. And then, yeah, so that's a really good way to stop that stream, because that was honestly a lot of my recycling was coming from junk mail. So, half of one of those bags is mail. Yeah, it really isn't that hard once you get started. Sorry, I stepped on someone's toes. Did someone have a question? Okay, seeing none, I yield my time.
So maybe since Sam is almost entirely plunged into darkness now, we ought to start winding down our program. But first of all, let's give a real big round of applause for both of our presenters. And thank you. There we go. And thank you so much. Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. And I'm just hoping that people will stay on for a minute so we can show a little snippet of the video that we made, which Bryan helped with, by the way. And it was really a challenge to make a video under COVID conditions and not all being together. But we had a lot of fun, and the impetus for this was because the Ann Arbor Summer Festival was canceled, and we were signed up to be at their waste reduction education tent this coming Friday night. And then when they told us it was canceled, they said, "But we're still gonna carry your presentation, but you just have to make it into a video and send it to us." Well, some offices may have a lot of knowledge and technical skill for doing that, but the Huron Valley group is not one of those. So we as I heard somebody say today, we built the plane as we were flying it. So we just want to show you a little snippet. Can you cue it up, Jamie?
Yeah, I'll cue it up. I might have to fast forward a little bit to the spot we want. So
yeah.
Can I recycle this plastic water bottle? What about the cap?
For plastics, it's important to look at the shape of the container. All bottle-shaped plastics are recyclable. You screw the cap on, it will also get recycled. Make sure the container is empty.
Okay.
By the way, plastic water bottles get turned into things like other plastic water bottles and clothing.
Look at the lid.
For plastics, it's important to look at the shape of the container. If it's in the shape of a tub, like this container, it's recyclable. However, the top, which is flat, is not recyclable. It'll end up going in the paper and contaminating the paper.
Can I recycle this plastic bag?
Plastic bags. Plastic bags are not recyclable in your curbside collection system, in the single stream system. They are recyclable. There are multiple locations at many retail outlets, so it is recyclable, just not in the curbside mix. Provides a huge problem at processing centers. The plastic gets wrapped up in rollers and so on. It creates a lot of problems. So not good in the curbside program, but can be recycled at specific locations.
Inquiring minds want to know, can I recycle this junk mail?
Anything that you would consider junk mail that you would receive in the mail, with the exception of like film, plastic, some magazines get wrapped in, any paper product that you would receive in the mail is fully recyclable in the curbside program. Whether or not it has a window, cellophane window or not, does not matter. Stamps on them does not matter. Even if it has staples, does not matter.
Can I recycle this big ball of oil?
Aluminum foil is recyclable curbside. First, clean it off, then compress it into a ball that is bigger than your fist. This means that it won't get lost in the machinery.
This can has a deposit on it, but they're not taking it back right now. Can I recycle it?
Aluminum cans are definitely recyclable in your curbside container. By the way, aluminum cans and aluminum foil get turned into other aluminum cans and aluminum foil. These are infinitely recyclable.
What about this wire coat hanger?
Coat hangers. A couple different kinds of coat hangers, the metal coat hanger and the plastic coat hanger. Plastic coat hangers, reusable. Both of these are reusable, obviously. Plastic coat hangers should not be put in recycling, are not recyclable at all. So if it is broken, you can't give it away. It has no other use. It should be thrown away. Metal hangers, again, reused if possible, should not be included in your curbside program. It has the same problem as plastic film or plastic bags in breaking free, and then the thin strands of metal ending up getting caught in the equipment. So it should not be included in your curbside mix, but can go in scrap metal containers at the drop-off station and other select locations.
What about this eggshell?
Eggshells are not recyclable in your curbside container. However, they can go in your backyard composter or in your compost cart. All food scraps, including meat and bones, can go in your compost cart.
Thanks for joining us today for Talking Trash from the Sierra Club Huron Valley Group. A huge thank you goes out to everyone who participated in the video, Jennifer and Brian, and our special guests, those young Ann Arborites who asked all those great questions. We really appreciate it. Again, we're Sierra Club Huron Valley Group. Join us at sierraclub.com.
So that'll be on the Ann Arbor Summer Festival website within the next few days. Amanda Sweetman has devoted countless hours of her life to doing that, and so if you know Amanda and if you see her, please tell her if you liked the video. And as soon as we have the finishing touches on it, we'll send out a link to the membership, and you can share it and watch it. We also, this is kind of encouraging us to try an even more ambitious video project, which you'll hear more about in the fall on the same topic. And maybe we should say that's a wrap. Thanks everybody for coming. Good night. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you so much. It was great. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.